The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure built by the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. Inside, representatives from 47 different species gathered around a circular platform. Each delegate sat in their special environment pod, breathing their own air adjusted to their own gravity. The Velnar crisis was the only item on today's agenda. Day-One sat in the human delegation pod, watching the other species with careful eyes. He had only been Earth's representative for 6 months. Humanity was the newest member of the galactic community, barely noticed by most of the older civilizations. Today, he wished they would stay unnoticed. The Thraxian delegate spoke first, their translator converting their clicking sounds into words everyone could understand. They displayed images of the Velnar homeworld on the main screen. Cities lay in ruins. Bodies filled the streets. The plague had killed 80 million Velnar in just 3 months. The plague mutates every 14 hours, the Thraxian explained. We sent our best medical teams. They developed a cure. By the time they administered it, the plague had changed. The cure was useless. We lost 17 of our scientists before we evacuated. The Karathi delegate stood next, their scales shimmering under the chamber lights. We attempted intervention as well. Our biological weapons were turned against us. The plague learned from our technology. It adapted. It evolved. This is not a natural disease. This is something far more dangerous. One by one, the advanced civilizations presented their findings. The Zinthari had lost a research station. The Plenox had lost 2 ships. The Vrexian Empire, the most powerful military force in the galaxy, declared the Velnar system too dangerous for any further contact. The mathematical models are clear, announced the Vrexian commander, their voice deep and final. The Velnar civilization has a 99.7% probability of complete extinction within 60 days. Any attempt to intervene will result in the loss of resources with 0 probability of success. Additionally, there is a 12% chance the plague could spread beyond the quarantine zone. The council chamber fell silent. Day-One felt his heart pounding in his chest. 12 billion Velnar lived on their homeworld. 12 billion lives, and the galaxy was about to abandon them. The council chair, an ancient Eldrani who had served for 300 years, raised their crystalline hand. The matter is clear. The Velnar cannot be saved. The risk is too great. The cost is too high. We will establish a quarantine perimeter around their system. No ships will enter. No ships will leave. We will monitor the situation from a safe distance. I call for a vote, the chair continued. All in favor of establishing permanent quarantine and cessation of all intervention efforts? The voting lights began to activate around the chamber. Green for yes, red for no. One after another, the lights turned green. The Thraxians voted yes. The Karathi voted yes. The Zinthari, the Plenox, the Vrexians all voted yes. Day-One's hand hovered over his voting panel. He looked at the images still displayed on the main screen. Velnar children in hospital beds. Velnar doctors working despite their own infections. Velnar families saying goodbye to each other. He pressed the red button. The chamber went silent. Every delegate turned to look at the human pod. The council chair's crystalline features showed something that might have been surprise. The human delegate votes against quarantine, the chair announced. The vote is 46-1. The measure passes. The Velnar system will be sealed. The Vrexian commander turned their pod to face Day-One directly. Human, your species has been part of this council for less than 1 year. You do not understand the realities of galactic survival. Resources must be preserved. Risks must be calculated. Emotions must not cloud judgment. Day-One stood, his voice steady. We understand reality perfectly well. We understand that 12 billion people are about to die. We understand that every species in this chamber has decided their lives don't matter. We understand that you call this logic, but we call it cowardice. The chamber erupted in angry responses. The Karathi delegate hissed at him. The Thraxian clicked furiously. The Eldrani chair had to activate the silence field. Human Day-One, the chair said coldly. Your species is young. You do not yet understand the difficult choices that govern galactic civilization. You will learn, as we all have learned, that sometimes sacrifice is necessary. Sometimes entire species must be lost so that others may survive. Then we haven't learned anything worth knowing, Day-One replied. Earth requests permission to attempt intervention on our own authority. The chamber fell silent again. The Vrexian commander made a sound that the translator converted into laughter. Human, your entire species has 3 medical frigates. The Velnar plague destroyed our research station in 4 hours. You have no advanced bioweapons, no quantum medical technology, no experience with pandemic scenarios on this scale. You will die and you will accomplish nothing. Maybe, Day One said. But at least we will have tried. The council chair looked at him for a long moment. Your request is granted. Earth may do as it wishes. This council will not stop you. Neither will we help you. You go alone. We're used to being alone, Day One said quietly. As the council session ended, Day One returned to his ship. He activated the communication channel to Earth. His hands were shaking slightly as he waited for the connection. The face of Admiral Kyung appeared on the screen, thousands of light years away. I watched the council session, the Admiral said. You made quite an impression. I need authorization, Day One said. I need the medical frigate Hope. I need volunteers. I need everything we can spare. You understand the odds? The Admiral asked. Yes, sir. You understand that Earth cannot send additional support? If something goes wrong, you'll be on your own? Yes, sir. Admiral Kyung was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled just slightly. Authorization granted. The Hope is being prepared now. You'll have 53 volunteers. That's everyone who applied in the last hour. They all know the risks. They all want to go anyway. Daewon felt something tight in his chest loosen. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me, the Admiral said. Just come back alive, and bring those Velnar home with you. 2 days later, the medical frigate Hope departed from Earth's orbital station. It was a small ship, barely 200 meters long. It carried 53 crew members and medical supplies that would have served a small city. It jumped into hyperspace, heading toward a dying world that the rest of the galaxy had already written off. The other species watched them go. Most predicted the humans would be dead within a week. Some felt pity, others felt contempt. A few felt something like shame, though they would never admit it. The Hope disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying with it the last hope of an entire civilization. The Hope dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velnar system. On the bridge, Daewon stood looking at the view screen and his blood ran cold. The planet below should have been beautiful. The Velnar homeworld was famous for its purple oceans and silver forests. But now thick clouds of smoke covered half the surface. The orbital stations were dark and silent. Debris floated everywhere, pieces of ships that had tried to escape and failed. Reading massive thermal signatures from the major cities, reported Taiyang from his engineering station. The young engineer's face was pale. They're burning the bodies. Thousands of bodies. Hana moved to stand beside Daewon. The chief medical officer had reviewed all the data during their journey. She knew what they were facing. The plague has a 72-hour incubation period, she said quietly. Once symptoms appear, victims have maybe 6 hours. The Velnar don't have enough medical facilities to handle the numbers. How many are left? Daewon asked. Scanners show approximately 7 billion life signs on the planet, Taiyang said. 5 billion fewer than their last census. 5 billion dead in 3 months. Daewon had trouble processing that number. It was too large, too terrible to understand. Try to establish communication, he ordered. Tell them we're here to help. It took 20 minutes to get a response. When the communication came through, it was audio only. The voice spoke in broken standard, the galactic trade language. Unknown vessel, this system is under quarantine. Leave immediately. We cannot guarantee your safety. Mireille stepped forward, activating her communication panel. The diplomatic officer's voice was calm and clear. This is the Earth vessel, Hope. We are a medical relief ship. We've come to offer assistance. There was a long silence. Then the voice came back, now with video. An elderly Velnar appeared on screen. His skin, which should have been smooth and gray, was covered in dark lesions. His eyes were yellow with fever. I am Elder Keith, he said. I lead what remains of our government. You are from Earth? The humans? Yes, Daewon said. We've come to help your people. Elder Keth made a sound that might have been laughter or crying. The council abandoned us. The Thoraxians, the Karathi, the mighty Vrexians, all of them left us to die. And now you come, humans who have barely left your own planet? This is some kind of joke. It's not a joke, Hana said, moving into view. We have medical supplies, equipment, and people willing to work. We may not be as advanced as the other species, but we're here. That has to count for something. Elder Keth looked at them for a long moment. You will die here. The plague kills everyone who comes close to it. Even with your protective suits and your medicine. The Thoraxians had better equipment than you could dream of. They all died. Maybe, Day One said. But we're here now. Let us try. Why? Elder Keth asked, and his voice broke. Why would you throw away your lives for strangers? Day One thought about all the speeches he could give, about duty and honor and doing the right thing. But looking at the dying elder on the screen, he spoke a simpler truth. Because if we don't, no one will. Elder Keth closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were wet. Land at the capital city coordinates I'm sending you. I will not stop you from trying. But I will not let myself hope anymore. Hope is too painful when everyone you love is dying. The hope descended through the smoke-filled atmosphere. As they got closer, the true horror of the situation became clear. The capital city had once held 10 million Velnar. Now the streets were empty except for the dead. Buildings stood with doors hanging open. Vehicles sat abandoned in the middle of roads. They landed in a large square near what had been the central hospital. A small group of Velnar waited for them, all wearing medical clothes, all showing signs of infection. Hana led the medical team down the ramp. They wore protective suits, but Hana had been honest with her team. The suits would help, but they wouldn't stop everything. The plague was too adaptable, too smart. Elder Keth stood at the front of the Velnar group. Up close, he looked even worse than he had on the screen. He was dying clearly, but he stood straight and proud. This is all that remains of our medical staff, he said, gesturing to the 12 Velnar behind him. 2 weeks ago, we had 3,000 doctors and nurses. Now we have 12. Mirai stepped forward and did something that made the Velnar gasp. She removed her helmet. What are you doing? Elder Keth demanded. Building trust, Mirai said simply. You need to know we're serious. We're not going to treat you like you're already dead. We're going to treat you like people worth saving. One by one, the other humans removed their helmets. Hana, Taeyang, Daewon, all of them. The Velnar medical staff stared in disbelief. You're insane, one of the Velnar doctors whispered. Probably, Hana agreed. Now can you show us to your patients? The hospital was worse than any nightmare. Hundreds of Velnar lay on beds on the floor. Anywhere there was space. The stench of death and disease filled the air. The Velnar medical staff did what they could, but there were too many sick and too few healers. Hana began immediate triage, moving through the patients with practiced efficiency. Taeyang set up monitoring equipment, adapting the human technology to work with Velnar biology. Mirai coordinated between the human and Velnar medical staff, breaking down the communication barriers. Daewon found himself holding the hand of a young Velnar child. The girl couldn't have been more than 5 years old in human terms. She was burning with fever, her small body covered in the dark lesions of the plague. Where are your parents? He asked gently. The girl looked up at him with huge, fever-bright eyes. They went to the burning place, she whispered. They told me to be brave, but I'm scared. Daewon felt his throat tighten. I'm scared too, he admitted. But you know what? We're going to be brave together. My friend Hana is going to give you some medicine that will make you feel better. Will it work? The girl asked. Daewon wanted to promise her it would. He wanted to tell her everything would be fine, but he had never lied to a child before and he wouldn't start now. I don't know, he said, but we're going to try our absolute best. Can you be strong for us? The girl nodded weakly. Hana came over and administered a dose of broad-spectrum antivirals. It wouldn't cure the plague, but it might buy them time to figure something out. They worked through the day and into the night. The humans moved among the Velnar patients, offering what comfort and medicine they could. The Velnar staff watched in amazement as these strange aliens from a primitive world refused to give up, even as the situation seemed hopeless. On the third day, the first human fell ill. Her name was Ji-young, a young nurse who had volunteered for the mission despite her family's protests. She collapsed while checking on a patient. The fever came on fast. Hana examined her with shaking hands. The dark lesions were already forming on Ji-young's skin. The plague had crossed the species barrier, just as everyone had warned it would. Daewon called an emergency meeting in the Hope's briefing room. The crew looked tired and scared. They all knew what Ji-young's infection meant. We can evacuate, Daewon said. Right now, we can leave before anyone else gets infected. No one would blame us. We tried. The crew looked at each other. Then Taeyang stood up. I'm not leaving, he said. I came here to help. That little girl you told me about, the one with no parents? I'm not leaving her. One by one, the others stood too. Every single crew member chose to stay. Elder Keth, watching from the doorway, finally allowed himself to feel something he thought was dead. For the first time in months, he felt hope. Hana hadn't slept in 48 hours. Her eyes burned as she stared at the microscope display, watching the plague virus dance and shift before her eyes. Every time she thought she understood its structure, it changed. The virus was unlike anything she had ever seen. It's learning, she muttered to herself. The damn thing is actually learning. Taeyang entered the lab carrying 2 cups of coffee. He looked as exhausted as she felt. Talking to yourself is a bad sign, he said, offering her one of the cups. So is hallucinating, Hana replied, taking the coffee gratefully. Which is what I must be doing, because this virus shouldn't be possible. It adapts too fast. It's like it has some kind of collective intelligence. Show me, Taeyang said. Hana pulled up her analysis on the main screen. Watch this. I introduce antibodies from Velnar immune systems. The virus encounters them and, see that? Within 6 hours, it's developed a resistance. Now watch what happens when I introduce Thoraxian antibodies from their failed treatment attempts. The virus shifted again, incorporating elements from both immune responses. It was like watching a living puzzle solve itself. It's taking the best parts of every attack against it and using them to make itself stronger, Taeyang said quietly. No wonder the other species failed. They all tried the same approach, Hana said. Advanced targeted treatments designed to attack specific viral structures. But every targeted attack just teaches the virus how to defend itself better. So what do we do differently? Taeyang asked. Hana was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled up another screen showing human immune system data. We're messy, she said slowly. Human immune systems are chaotic, unpredictable. We evolved fighting thousands of different diseases on Earth. Our antibodies don't attack in clean, logical patterns. They throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. You think that might work? Taeyang asked, leaning forward. I think it's the only thing we haven't tried, Hana said. The virus learns from organized attacks. But what if we hit it with complete chaos? What if we introduce so many different immune responses at once that it can't adapt fast enough? She worked frantically, extracting antibodies from her own blood and mixing them with Velnar immune cells. The process was crude compared to the elegant treatments the other species had attempted. But sometimes crude worked where elegant failed. 3 days later, they had their first test results. The treatment had slowed the virus's progression in laboratory samples. Not stopped it, but slowed it. For the first time since arriving, they had something that actually worked. It's not enough, Hana said, staring at the data. It buys us maybe 12 extra hours, and then the virus adapts and we're back where we started. Then we need something that can adapt as fast as the virus does, Taeyang said. He had been working on his own project in the engineering bay. Come see what I've been building. In the engineering section of the Hope, Taeyang had set up a complex network of equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. At the center was a chamber filled with billions of microscopic machines, each one smaller than a cell. Nanobots, Taeyang explained. Earth's nanotech is primitive compared to the other species, but that might actually help us. These bots are simple. They're designed to carry and deliver medicine directly to infected cells. But I've been thinking about your chaos theory. He pulled up a holographic display. What if we program the nanobots to monitor the virus in real time? They deliver your antibody treatment, but they also watch how the virus responds. When it starts to adapt, the nanobots change the treatment. They keep changing it constantly, never giving the virus time to fully adapt to any single approach. Hana stared at the display, her mind racing. Adaptive treatment delivery, she breathed. The nanobots become like an artificial immune system that can evolve as fast as the virus does. Exactly, Taeyang said. But there's a problem. To make it work, we need antibody samples from as many different humans as possible. The more variety we have, the more options the nanobots have to work with. How many samples? Hana asked. All of them, Taeyang said quietly. Every crew member. Multiple samples from each person. And we'll need to keep taking samples as we go, so the system has fresh material to work with. Hana understood what he wasn't saying. Taking that many samples would weaken the crew. It would make them more vulnerable to infection. Some of them were already sick. This could kill them faster. We need to tell them, she said. They deserve to know what we're asking. That evening, Daewon gathered the crew in the Hope's main bay. Hana and Taeyang explained their plan. The room was silent as they finished. Finally, Mirai stood up. She looked pale and thin. She had been working 20-hour days coordinating relief efforts. "How many samples do you need from each of us?" she asked. "3 initially," Hana said. "Then 1 per week as the treatment continues." "And this will definitely weaken us," Mirai said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Hana admitted. "It will make you tired. It will compromise your immune systems. If you're already infected, it might make things worse. But it might save the Velnar," Mirai finished. "It's our best chance," Taeyang said. Mirai rolled up her sleeve. "Then take my blood first." The rest of the crew lined up behind her. Every single person volunteered. They gave their samples, even those who were already showing signs of infection. Even Ji-young, who had been the first to fall ill and was still fighting the disease in isolation. It took 2 weeks to produce enough of the treatment for initial trials. Hana worked with barely any sleep, programming the nanobots, testing and retesting every component. Taeyang built the delivery systems, adapting human technology to work with Velnar biology. The first patient to receive the experimental treatment was the young girl Daewon had met on their first day. Her name was Lyra and she was barely holding on. The dark lesions covered most of her small body. She couldn't speak anymore, could barely breathe. Hana administered the injection herself, her hands steady despite her fear. The nanobots entered Lyra's bloodstream, carrying their payload of human antibodies. Then they waited. For 6 hours, nothing happened. Lyra's condition continued to deteriorate. Daewon sat beside her bed, holding her small hand, watching her struggle to breathe. Then slowly, her fever began to drop. The monitoring equipment showed the virus levels in her blood starting to decrease. Not quickly, but steadily. The nanobots were working, adapting to the virus's changes faster than it could defend itself. By the next morning, Lyra opened her eyes. By that evening, she could speak. By the end of the week, the lesions were fading. "It's working," Hana said, staring at the medical displays in disbelief. "It's actually working." They began treating other patients. The results were consistent. Not everyone survived. The treatment couldn't save those who were too far gone. But for those caught early enough, the cure worked. The plague was finally meeting something it couldn't adapt to fast enough. News spread through the remaining Velnar population. Hope, real hope, began to replace despair. The humans had done what the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had said was impossible. But success came with a price. The constant blood donations were taking their toll on the crew. Daewon watched his people growing weaker, saw the dark circles under their eyes, the trembling in their hands. On the 20th day, Daewon was reviewing supply reports when Mirai found him. Her face was grave. "It's Hana," she said quietly. "She's collapsed. The plague. She has the plague." Daewon felt the world tilt beneath him. Hana was their medical genius, the one who had figured out how to beat the virus. Without her, everything could fall apart. He ran to the medical bay. Hana lay on a bed, her skin already showing the first dark lesions. But she was awake and she was smiling weakly. "Don't look so worried," she said, her voice hoarse. "We have a cure, remember? Besides, I'm a doctor. I know exactly what needs to be done. You need to rest," Daewon said. "I'll rest when this is over," Hana replied. "Right now, we need to scale up production. We have 7 billion Velnar to treat. Get me a tablet. I can work from here." That was when Daewon realized something that made him both proud and heartbroken. His crew wasn't going to stop. They would keep giving, keep working, keep sacrificing until every Velnar was saved or until there was nothing left of themselves to give. They were going to win, but the cost might be everything. The morning sun rose over the Velnar capital for the first time in months, without the smell of burning bodies filling the air. In the central hospital, the last critical patient received their treatment. Throughout the city, throughout the planet, the plague was finally retreating. Elder Keth stood at the window of his office, looking out at his city. The streets were still mostly empty, but here and there, he could see Velnar emerging from their homes. Cautious, hesitant, but alive. So many had been lost, but those who remained had a future now. Behind him, the door opened. He turned to see Mirai enter, and his heart broke. The human diplomatic officer looked like death itself. Her skin was pale, her eyes sunken. Dark lesions marked her neck and arms. She could barely stand. "You should be in medical care," Elder Keth said, moving to help her to a chair. "I'm on the treatment," Mirai said. waving away his concern. "I'll be fine. I came to give you the final numbers." She pulled out a datapad with shaking hands. 6.8 billion Velnar have received treatment. Another 200 million are in the queue for the next round. The plague's spread has been stopped completely. New infection rates have dropped to 0. "You saved us," Elder Keth said quietly. "Your people saved mine." Mireille looked away. "Not all of us. We lost 27 crew members. 27 out of 53. Another 15 are critically ill. Only 11 of us are still healthy enough to work." The numbers hit Elder Keth like a physical blow. Over half the human crew dead or dying, and they had done it willingly, knowingly, for people they had never met before. "Where is Commander Day One?" he asked. Mireille's expression went carefully blank. "He's in critical condition. The plague hit him hard. He gave too many blood samples, weakened himself too much. Hana says. She says it could go either way." "Take me to him," Elder Keth demanded. In the Hope's medical bay, Day One lay unconscious, his body covered in lesions. Monitoring equipment surrounded his bed, and Hana sat beside him reviewing his vitals with exhausted eyes. She looked barely better than her patients, but she refused to rest. "How is he?" Elder Keth asked quietly. Hana didn't look up from her screens. "The treatment is working, but slowly. He gave so much of himself to create the cure. His immune system is barely functioning. Even with the nanobots, it's a fight." "Is there anything more we can do?" Elder Keth asked. "Pray," Hana said. "If your people do that. Because I've done everything medicine can do." Elder Keth sat down on the other side of Day One's bed. He reached out and took the human commander's hand carefully. "Then I will pray," he said. "For him and for all your people. You came to us when we had lost all hope. You gave us back our future. We will not forget." Outside the Hope, something unexpected was happening. Galactic news feeds were broadcasting images from the Velnar homeworld. The plague had been stopped. An entire civilization had been saved, and it had been done by humans. The species everyone had dismissed as too primitive, too naive, too foolish. Ships began arriving in the Velnar system. Not invaders, but observers. The Galactic Council had sent representatives. They arrived too late to help, but in time to witness the impossible. The Thoraxian delegate who had spoken so confidently about the mathematical impossibility of saving the Velnar now stood in the hospital, watching Velnar children playing, their lesions healed, their futures restored. The delegate said nothing. There was nothing to say. The Karathi representative requested a meeting with the human crew. Mireille, as the ranking conscious officer, met with them in the Hope's briefing room. On behalf of the Karathi people, the representative began, their scales shifting with discomfort. "I wish to express our admiration for what you have accomplished here. We underestimated your species. It will not happen again." "Is that supposed to be an apology?" Mireille asked, her voice flat. The Karathi representative shifted uncomfortably. "We did what we believed was logical. What our data suggested was the only rational course of action. You abandoned 12 billion people to die," Mireille said. 27 of my friends are dead because you were too afraid to try." "Don't talk to me about logic." The Karathi had no response to that. They left quickly, ashamed, but too proud to admit it openly. The Vrexian commander arrived next, their massive form barely fitting through the Hope's corridors. They found Taeyang in the engineering bay, working on expanding the nanobot production capacity. "Your technology is crude," the commander observed, watching Taeyang work. Taeyang didn't look up, and yet it worked. "Funny how that happens. We would like to study your methods," the commander continued. "The Vrexian Empire wishes to integrate this treatment approach into our medical protocols." Now Taeyang did look up, his eyes hard. "You want our technology? The same technology you said was too primitive to bother with?" "Circumstances have changed," the commander said stiffly. "Yes, they have," Taeyang agreed. 27 humans died developing this cure. You'll get the technology, because people need it. But don't you dare pretend you deserve it." The commander left without another word. Throughout the Velnar homeworld, the recovery continued. The treatment was distributed to every corner of the planet. Production facilities were set up to continue creating the cure. Velnar medical teams trained by Hana and her staff began taking over the distribution efforts. A week after the last patient received treatment, the Velnar people organized something unprecedented. In every city and every town and every small settlement, the Velnar gathered. They stood in silence, facing toward the sky, toward the small human ship that had saved them. Elder Keth broadcasted a message to the entire planet and to all the watching galactic observers. His voice was strong, filled with emotion he no longer tried to hide. "Today we remember," he said. "We remember the 5 billion Velnar who died before help arrived. We remember the 27 humans who died saving us. We remember that when the entire galaxy abandoned us, when every advanced civilization declared us beyond hope, one species stood alone. Humanity asked for nothing. They expected no reward. They came because it was right. They stayed because we needed them. They died because they refused to let us die alone. From this day forward, let it be known across the galaxy. The Velnar people owe humanity a debt that can never be repaid. But we will spend the rest of our existence trying. We declare eternal friendship with Earth. Their enemies are our enemies. Their causes are our causes. Their people are our people." On the Hope in the medical bay, Daewon opened his eyes for the first time in days. Hana was there immediately, checking his vitals, adjusting his treatment. "Did we do it?" Daewon asked, his voice barely a whisper. Hana smiled, tears running down her face. "We did it. The Velnar are saved. And the crew?" Hana's smile faded. "We lost 27, but the rest will survive." "You made sure of that," Daewon closed his eyes. 27 lives. 27 friends. The price of their victory was carved into his heart. "Was it worth it?" he asked quietly. Hana looked out the window at the Velnar city below, at the people walking freely in the streets, at the children playing. "Yes," she said firmly. "Yes, it was." Elder Keith entered the medical bay, his arms full of purple flowers native to the Velnar homeworld. "These are for your fallen," he said. "In our culture, purple flowers are given to honor those who sacrificed everything for others." He placed the flowers around the room, a tribute to the humans who would never see Earth again. "We will build a monument," Elder Keth said, "in the center of our capital where everyone can see it. The names of all your crew will be carved in stone. Every Velnar child will learn their names. They will never be forgotten." Daewon reached out and took Elder Keith's hand. "Thank you," he said, "for giving their sacrifice meaning." "No," Elder Keth replied. "Thank you. Thank all of you. You saved our entire civilization. That kind of debt transcends words." Outside, the sun set on a world that had been given a second chance. The plague was beaten. The Velnar would survive. And humanity had proven something that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. Sometimes the newest voice speaks the oldest truth. That compassion matters more than calculation. That mercy is stronger than logic. And that the worth of a civilization is measured not by its technology, but by what it's willing to sacrifice for strangers. 6 months after the plague was defeated, the Galactic Council chamber was full once again. But everything felt different now. The representatives who had once looked down on humanity now watched the human delegation with a mixture of respect and shame. Daewon stood at the central platform, his body still bearing the scars of the plague. He walked with a slight limp now, and his hair had gone white in places from the stress his body had endured. But his eyes were clear and his voice was strong. Beside him stood Elder Keth, representing the Velnar civilization. The elder looked healthier than he had in months, though the memory of what his people had suffered would never fully fade. 6 months ago, Daewon began, his voice carrying through the chamber. "I stood in this room and watched as every single one of you voted to abandon an entire civilization. You had your reasons, your logic, your calculations, but 12 billion lives were hanging in the balance and you all chose to do nothing." The chamber was silent. No one tried to defend their decision. The images from the Velnar homeworld had been broadcast across the galaxy. Everyone had seen what humanity accomplished. "I'm not here to judge you," Daewon continued. "I'm here because we learned something important. We learned that the galaxy needs a rapid response system for medical emergencies. We need teams that will go where others won't. We need people who will try even when the math says it's impossible." He activated a holographic display showing his proposal. Earth requests the establishment of the Galactic Humanitarian Medical Corps, a joint organization funded and staffed by all member civilizations. When disaster strikes, when plague threatens, when populations are in danger, the Corps will respond, not with calculations about probability and cost, but with action. The Thraxian delegate stood immediately. The Thraxian Collective pledges full support for this initiative. We will provide medical technology, ships, and personnel. What happened to the Velnar must never happen again. The Karathi representative was next. The Karathi Union offers our biological research facilities and our finest scientists. We have much to learn from human methods. One by one, every species in the council pledged their support. The Vrexian Empire offered military transport and protection. The Zinthari provided funding. The Planox committed their advanced medical equipment. Even the ancient Eldrani, who rarely involved themselves in galactic affairs, offered their knowledge and resources. The council chair, the same ancient Eldrani who had declared the Velnar doomed, spoke last. 6 months ago, I believed I had learned all the galaxy had to teach. I believed wisdom came from age and experience. But humanity has taught us something we had forgotten, that compassion is not weakness, that hope is not naive, that sometimes the bravest thing is to try, even when logic says you will fail. The chair's crystalline form seemed to glow brighter. This council formally apologizes to the Velnar people for our abandonment. We cannot undo what was done. We cannot bring back those who were lost, but we can ensure it never happens again. The proposal is accepted unanimously. The Galactic Humanitarian Medical Corps will be established immediately. After the session, Day One found himself surrounded by representatives wanting to express their support, their admiration, their shame. He accepted their words politely but without warmth. Trust would have to be earned again. Mireille found him later standing alone on an observation deck. The diplomatic officer had recovered from the plague, though like Day One, she bore permanent scars. Earth has received over 200 applications to join the medical corps, she said, standing beside him. From 50 different species. Everyone wants to be part of what we started. Good, Day One said. The more people willing to help, the fewer will die alone. The Velnar want you to come back, Mirai added. Elder Keth says the monument is complete. They want to dedicate it with you there. Day One nodded slowly. We'll go. The crew deserves to see what their sacrifice meant. Back on the Velnar homeworld, life had returned to something approaching normal. The cities were being rebuilt. The population was growing again. Children played in the streets without fear. In the center of the capital, in the largest public square, stood a monument 30 meters tall. It was made of dark stone carved with names, 27 human names, each one representing a life given for strangers. At the base of the monument was an inscription in both Velnar and standard languages. When the galaxy forsook us, humanity remained. Here are written the names of the brave souls who gave everything to save a people they had never known. May we never forget their gift. May we always strive to be worthy of their sacrifice. The dedication ceremony drew Velnar from across the planet. Millions gathered to honor the fallen humans. When the hope landed, the crowd fell silent. The surviving crew members walked through the quiet streets toward the monument. Everywhere they looked, they saw Velnar standing with their hands over their hearts in respect. Children held purple flowers. Adults wept openly. Elder Keth met them at the monument. The old Velnar looked stronger now, recovered from the plague but marked forever by what his people had endured. Welcome home, he said to the humans, for that is what you are to us now. You gave us back our lives. This world will always be home to any human who wishes to walk upon it. Hannah stepped forward, tears streaming down her face as she read the names carved in stone. Each one was someone she had worked beside, laughed with, fought to save. She reached out and touched the name of Ji-young, the young nurse who had been the first to fall ill. They were so brave, she whispered, as were you all. Elder Keth said, every one of you. You came when no one else would. You stayed when others would have fled. You gave of yourselves until there was almost nothing left to give. That is courage beyond measure. A small Velnar child approached holding a bundle of purple flowers. It was Lyra, the little girl who had been one of the first to receive the treatment. She was completely healed now, vibrant and healthy. Thank you for saving me, she said to Daewon, offering him the flowers. And thank you for saving everyone. Daewon knelt down to her level, accepting the flowers. You're welcome, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You and everyone like you are why we came. Never forget that you're precious. That you matter, that you deserve to be saved. The ceremony continued with speeches and remembrances, but the most powerful moment came at the end, when the entire Velnar crowd sang a traditional song of mourning and gratitude. The melody was beautiful and heartbreaking. a people's farewell to their dead and their thanks to those who had given them a future. Later, as the Hope prepared to depart, Taeyang stood in the engineering bay with several Velnar engineers. They were reviewing the nanobot production systems he had built. "The system is stable now," one of the Velnar engineers said. "We can produce enough treatment for any future outbreaks, and we've shared the specifications with the other council species. Your design is already saving lives on other worlds." Taeyang smiled. "Good, that's what it was meant for. Not glory or recognition, just saving lives." On the bridge, Mirai received a communication from Earth. She brought it to Daewon immediately. "It's from the United Earth government," she said. "They want you to serve as Earth's first galactic ambassador. Full-time position based at the council station." Daewon looked at the message for a long time. "What about you?" he asked. "They want me as deputy ambassador," Mirai said with a small smile. "And Hana has been offered the directorship of the new Galactic Institute for Cross-Species Medicine. Taeyang is being recruited by a dozen different organizations who want to study his nanobot systems." "The crew that no one believed in," Daewon said quietly. "Now everyone wants us." "Because we showed them what was possible," Mirai replied. "We showed them that sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing. And that's a lesson the galaxy needed to learn." As the Hope lifted off from the Velnar homeworld for the last time, the entire planet seemed to glow with celebration. Lights lit up in every city. Fireworks painted the sky. A whole civilization saying goodbye and thank you to the small ship that had refused to let them die. On the council station, the first class of the Galactic Humanitarian Medical Corps was beginning their training. 200 volunteers from 50 species, learning to work together, learning from human methods, preparing to go where they were needed most. The Thoraxians taught advanced medical technology. The Karathi shared their biological research. The Vrexians trained them in crisis management. But it was the human instructors who taught the most important lesson: that no one is beyond saving, that hope is never foolish, and that the measure of a civilization is what it does for those who cannot help themselves. In her new laboratory, Hana worked with scientists from across the galaxy. Together they studied diseases, developed treatments, prepared for the next crisis. The walls of her office were covered with images from the Velnar mission, 27 faces looking back at her, reminding her why the work mattered. Taeyang traveled from world to world, teaching engineers how to build and maintain the adaptive nanobot systems. Each planet he visited represented thousands of potential lives saved. Each system he helped establish was a memorial to his fallen friends.